I still remember that night like it was yesterday. It was 12 years ago, when I was just 14 years old, and I had gone to visit an old friend after years of being apart. He lived on a 20-acre ranch, and I was excited to reunite with him and explore his new home. Little did I know, that night would become etched in my memory as one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. My friend and I spent the evening catching up and reminiscing about old times. We watched horror movies in his family's camper, which was parked in the middle of the ranch. We were armed with guns, 2 ranch dogs, and a cat, making us feel safe and secure in the isolated location. As the night went on, my friend eventually dozed off, leaving me alone in the camper. I was engrossed in playing Grand Theft Auto when I heard the ranch dogs start barking frantically. At first, I dismissed it as just some wildlife antics and continued playing my game. But then, I had to take a pee. As I stepped out into the darkness, I was immediately hit with a sense of unease. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I felt like I was being watched. I quickly finished my business and headed back to the camper, but as I was about to close the door, I saw something that scared the crap out of me. In the darkness, illuminated only by the moonlight, I saw a face. It was a man's face, with a sinister grin and cold, dead eyes. I froze in terror, unable to move or scream. I couldn't even make out any features, but I could feel his gaze on me. It was like he was staring right into my soul. Despite the alarm bells going off in my head, I managed to shut the door and lock it. I tried to brush it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, but I couldn't shake off the look of that face. I tried to distract myself by playing my game, but I couldn't focus. Minutes later, the dogs started barking again, even more frantically this time. I knew something was wrong, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I woke up my friend, who was initially skeptical, but quickly became alarmed when he heard the fear in my voice. We both peered outside, and I could see the same terror reflected in his eyes. We decided to call his parents, but they just laughed it off, thinking we were just being paranoid. But as I tried to explain the situation to them, panic seeped into my words. His dad, who was armed, rushed outside to investigate. From the safety of the camper, we heard a blood-curdling scream and 3 gunshots. Terrified, we huddled together, not knowing what was happening outside. After what felt like an eternity, his dad came back inside, looking pale and shaken. He told us that he had found a man on the ground, and he had shot him in self-defense. We were all in shock, trying to process what had just happened. His mom immediately called the police, but we were in a rural location, so it would take them at least 30 minutes to arrive. In the meantime, we all stayed inside the camper, too scared to go outside. As we waited, the family, including the youngest, Jacqueline, witnessed the aftermath of the incident. We saw the dead man on the ground, and one of the ranch dogs, who had been barking earlier, now lay silent next to him. It was a gruesome sight, and we were all terrified. When the police finally arrived, they revealed that the intruder was a prison escapee from a nearby facility, about 15 miles away. He had a history of violence and had killed 2 people before escaping. The incident shook us all to our core, and it took a long time for me to feel safe and secure again. I couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened if we hadn't been armed, or if my friend's dad hadn't woken up. It was a night that I will never forget, and it serves as a constant reminder to always be aware of our surroundings and to trust our gut instincts. When I was 11 years old, I had a sleepover with my best friend Lily. I was staying at her house for 2 nights, and we were planning to have the best time ever. We were going to watch movies, play games, and make cupcakes. It was going to be the perfect weekend. The first day was just like any other sleepover. We watched movies, ate junk food, and stayed up way past our bedtime. We were having so much fun that we didn't even notice the time passing by. Eventually, we both fell asleep, exhausted from all the excitement. The second day started off just as ordinary. We woke up late, had breakfast, and decided to spend the day playing board games and baking cupcakes. We were both having a blast, and the time flew by. Before we knew it, it was already nighttime. After dinner, we settled down to watch a scary movie. We both loved horror movies, and we were excited to watch one together. As the movie played on, we both started to get a little creeped out. We kept jumping at every little noise, and we couldn't help but feel like someone was watching us. But we brushed it off as just our overactive imaginations and continued watching the movie. Once it was over, we decided to go to bed. Lily's parents had already gone to sleep, so we were the only ones awake in the house. As we lay in our beds, we chatted and giggled, trying to calm our nerves from the scary movie. But then, something strange happened. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a tall man standing near the door, looking at me. My heart stopped, and I couldn't move or make a sound. I was paralyzed with fear. The man was tall and dressed in all black. He was wearing a hat, and his eyes were glowing red. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared to make a sound. I just lay there, staring at the man in complete terror. After what felt like an eternity, the man finally turned and walked out of the room. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. I was too scared to move, or even close my eyes. I just lay there, trembling in fear. Eventually, I mustered up the courage to get out of bed and check on Lily. She was sound asleep, and I didn't want to wake her up and scare her. So I decided to stay awake and keep an eye out for the man. I hid under my blanket, hoping that he wouldn't come back. I was awake for what felt like hours, too scared to move or even breathe. Finally, exhaustion took over, and I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to Lily asking me why I had kept my head under the blanket all night. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She told me that I had been hiding under the blanket the whole night, and that she was surprised I didn't have a hard time breathing. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that I had been hiding under the blanket the whole time. I told her about the man I had seen, and she wasn't surprised. She told me that she had seen him countless times and that she was used to it. I was horrified. I couldn't believe that Lily had been living with this terrifying man in her house. She explained to me that he was a shadow person and that the man I saw was known as the Hatman. She said that he was a common sighting in her house and that she had gotten used to him over the years. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had never heard of shadow people before, and I was terrified to know that they were real. Lily told me that she had tried to tell her parents, but they didn't believe her. They thought it was just her imagination. After that night, I never slept at Lily's house again. I was too scared to even step foot in her room. I couldn't believe that she had been living with this terrifying presence for so long.